All right, folks, John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. And today we are joined by the granddaddy of franchising, the granddaddy of tax franchising, John Hewitt, franchisor extraordinaire. Was that a good enough intro for you, John?
I love it.
All right.
Could you say it again at the end?
Yes. I'll make sure I'll repeat it 2 or 3 times. So today we're going to talk about the ATAX franchise. But before we get into that, can you bring us up to speed on a little bit about your background? I think pretty much everybody in franchising knows who you are, but just tell us kind of how did you get started in franchising?
I got started in 53 years ago. My dad was a CFO of a public company, and he decided that he wanted to buy an H&R Block franchise. And I grew up in a suburb of Buffalo, and there was called Hamburg, and there was no H&R Block in Hamburg. And so he called up and said, "I'd like to buy a franchise." They said, "Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to open a company store there this year. Maybe your son," I was at the University of Buffalo, attending the University of Buffalo. He said, "Maybe your son could take our tax course and work for us." So I took the tax course, and it was the most interesting course I'd ever taken. And I started working as a tax preparer evenings and weekends while I was at the University of Buffalo. I was so many blessings in my life. One of the blessings was when I was 20 years old, I found out what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Good deal. Now, where did ATAX franchise come from? You decided to find something that started with A, so you were at the front of the alphabet. Where did you come up with ATAX at?
ATAX was founded by a gentleman named Alvarez. His
Gotcha.
last name was Alvarez. And when he went to franchise, he found that there was dozens of Alvarez taxes around the country.
Sure.
And so he was going to have a problem. So his attorney said, "You're not going to be able to use that because when you go to San Antonio or El Paso or Los Angeles, someone's already got use of that name." So they talked them into ATAX. And so ATAX is primarily Hispanic focused. It came as a result of not being able to use Alvarez tax.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. I mean, you would think that, and the name itself is easy. It's short, easy to remember, very brandable, right? You know, it's ATAX France. You know, it's right there. You know exactly what the company does too, right?
Exactly. And it's the my third tax company, and it's a nice, as you said, nice, easy name to remember and to expand.
Now, John, let's talk a little bit about I always like to talk about key differentiator, right? There's a lot of tax opportunities out there, but, besides having the granddaddy of tax involved in the company, what is it that really separates ATAX from the other franchise folks in the same pool?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say this tongue in cheek, but John Hewitt.
Right.
And, I was with H&R Block for a dozen years, and they were the fastest growing. I founded Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, and I was with them for 15 years, and they were the fastest growing. Then I founded Liberty Tax, and of course, they were the fastest growing. So, and now ATAX. ATAX is the fastest growing. So for 53 years, there's been one thing consistent in the tax preparation industry. Whoever I'm with is fastest growing. Right. Now, that's a bit tongue in cheek, but really it's because we have the best system of doing business. And my job as a franchisor is to give you the best system. If I do my job, your job is to follow that system. And I've been doing that for 53 years. So that's the key differentiator. Now, we do some things that are objectively better than the others. We have differentiators that they're not subjective. When I ask people, why they're better, they'll say things like, "Oh, we offer the best service." Well, that's subjective, right? Everyone says, if you went to the CEO of H&R Block and said, "Who offers the best tax service?" he would say, "Us." If you went to Jackson Hewitt, they would say, and so forth. So everyone says it, but we have objective things that we do different.
Good deal. Good deal. Now, when it comes to the franchise owners, who is your ideal franchise owner? Who really clicks with your system and the culture of ATAX?
We look for a number of things I brought in 5,000 franchises.
Right.
So series of things we look for. Number one, are they meant to be an entrepreneur? Because most people in this country want to be an entrepreneur. 2/3 of the country want to be an entrepreneur, own their own business, but only about 1 out of 5 can be an entrepreneur. So we take them through the process. Can you be an entrepreneur? Secondly, then, can you be in this industry? Is this the right industry for you? right? Some people love what we do and some people hate it. So you have to find yes, I can be an entrepreneur. Yes, I can join the industry. And then thirdly, are we the right vehicle for you? Should you be self-employed? Should you go with a competitor? Are we the right vehicle for you? So having said all that, the most important thing is and again, this may seem silly to your listeners, but again, your job is to follow the yellow brick road, get on the system, use the menu that I give you, use the system that I give you. And John, I brought in 5,000 franchises. Guess how many have followed the system 100% out of 5,000?
Yeah, probably none, right?
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-doo-dah. So we have not had anyone that's ever followed the system. So the number one key we look for is, are you going to follow our system?
Yep. Yeah, I would say that most folks go into it thinking that they want to follow it, but what you're saying is no one follows it exactly right? You know what I mean? They all try, but no one's ever able to get it exactly lockstep. But those that do figure that out, I've been in franchising almost 20 years, the folks that will commit to following that system, and I think you would agree with this, tend to work out and be a little more successful in their franchise business, right?
Yeah, I've created 1,000 millionaires, and the people that do well, they listen 98, 99% of the time.
Right.
But I've also had 1,000 people that went out of business and they listen less than 90% of the time. So really the key isn't where you're located or how smart you are or how educated you are or how experienced you are. The key is whether you follow the proven methods we give you.
Good deal. Good deal. Can we talk a little bit more about the franchisee just for a minute? Kind of give us just a real high level overview. What is the day in the life of a franchise owner? Are they preparing taxes? Are they training folks? Just kind of point us in the right direction, what an owner does with ATAX.
Yeah, we're looking for CEOs. We don't treat people to do taxes. You know, you can hire people to do taxes. I owned a gourmet restaurant, and not only do I not know how to cook, I'd never even stepped in the kitchen. So you don't need to know taxes. And of the 5,000 franchisees I brought in, 2,500 of them had never done a tax return other than their own. And so you need to be CEO of your business. And that's, we actually have a CEO class, a weekly class for our franchisees because it's so essential. If you just want to sit around and do taxes, come and work for me. Don't be an owner. Just be an employee. If you just wanted to sit and do taxes, you're in the wrong place.
Got it. Got it. So you're looking for somebody to, and I'll use the cliche that we all talk about, somebody that wants to work on the business, not in the business, right? You're looking for somebody who wants to build that team of tax preparers, right?
Yeah, Michael Gerber, he wrote the E-Myth 35 years ago, and he invented that. In my mind, he invented that. So right. Yes, we don't want people to get down and dirty and roll up their sleeves and sit and do tax returns or clean the toilets. We want people that are willing to hire people to do the work, and they do the marketing and the scheduling and the operation of the business, and then they can run multiple offices. The average number of offices our franchises have at all the companies I've been with is about 6 or 7 locations.
Yeah, it sounds very scalable if they're working on it and they're focused on those CEO activities and they're putting the right people in the right spots there. It sounds like it's very scalable, right?
Absolutely. We've had huge success, and virtually all out of the 1,000 millionaires that I've helped develop, 980 had more than one office.
Right. Good deal. Let's talk a little bit about the industry. You know, you've been around. We jokingly said about it, half jokingly said the granddaddy of tax franchising, but it's really true. I mean, you've been through that common denominator you mentioned. I love that explanation. But let's take a look at the industry. Why should somebody think about getting into the tax preparation industry and franchising today?
Well, I love the tax preparation industry for many, many reasons. Number one is we deal with the IRS, and thousands of people have told me over my career, maybe tens of thousands, I'm afraid of the IRS. And so I just feel like sending a thank you note to the IRS. And in the latest tax bill, they are hiring over 80,000 more auditors. I say, thank you, IRS.
You're like cheering, right?
Yeah. Right. 1/3 of the people that come and pay up repairs because they're afraid of the IRS. And then secondly, death and taxes. Benjamin Franklin said that over 250 years ago. There's only two certainties in life: death and tax. Dennis Granger said 30 years ago, there's really a third one, and that's change, right? There's tax, death, tax, and change. It's a certainty. It's if not recession proof, it's recession resistant. During the worst recession of our lifetime before COVID, in 2008 and 2009, the recession depression, Starbucks closed 650 locations. Liberty Tax, my company, opened 700 locations during those 2 years, the fastest growing company in America. Because during a recession, you don't have to buy a fancy cup of coffee. You don't have to eat out. You don't have to buy a car. You don't have to buy a house, but you do have to file your taxes. So it's recession resistant, and seasonal is a good thing. I mean, some of our people do other things in their offices, like sell insurance or do bookkeeping or other things. But some of our franchisees just love working for 3.5 months and relaxing the rest of the year.
Work hard, play hard, right? There's nothing that says we have to work all year long if you can earn what you need to earn during that seasonal period. And we all know as consumers, we even know when that seasonal period. I'm not calling my tax guy in August, right? When do I call my tax guy? Call him in December, beginning of January, right? I mean, that's just how it's all been laid out for us for hundreds of years, right?
It's since 1913.
Oh, well, there you go. 100 years. Yeah, 110, or a little bit over 110 years. Now, let me ask you, what would you say, John, is the hardest part about starting a tax franchise? I mean, I think I know the answer to this one, so it's kind of a loaded question for you. But what would you say is the hardest part about making this thing successful?
Well, I'll go back to what I said before and then add to it. And that is that we give you a system of building your business from scratch. And you have to follow that system. Now, marketing is something that only 5% of individuals are good at marketing. 95% are good at operations of human beings, but only 5% are good at marketing. So it goes against the grain. It goes against the grain to put on a costume and go out in the community and offer gift certificates, or we have an eagle that dances in the street. It goes against the grain for people to do that, or go to meetings like Chamber of Commerce meetings, have roadside parties, get into the community. People just want to sit in their office and wait for business. So part of the system is startup is getting into the community, and we give you all of the ways to get into the community, when and how much to spend, and so forth. Plus, we're experts at online digital marketing.
John, I knew what you were going to say, and I know that one was a real softball for you there, but I knew you were going to say that the system and following those processes. But it's interesting what you added on there. I like how you expanded on that to the marketing component of it, because I would agree with the numbers that you put out there that the vast majority of folks just aren't. They're just not natural marketers. So you've got the systems in place, and you'll tell them when, where, how, why. I mean, you go through all of that stuff in the training and all of that, right? For the new owners, you'll tell them exactly where to go, when to be there, and what to do, right?
In addition to giving you the training, like every month we have training as we bring in new franchisees for next year. In addition to giving you the training, we give you a calendar from the tax season is 105 days. We give you a calendar of what you do every day.
Oh, I see.
Then, in addition to the calendar, we're on a phone call with you twice a week, giving you expert testimony from franchisees that are doing it and how it's working for them. So everything is laid out to the finest detail for you.
So you're actually giving them, like, folks that are already doing this with ATAX that's already successful. So it's not even just you telling them this is how they should be doing it. It's the actual folks that have already ponied up for the startup of the business saying, hey, this stuff works. This is what you should be doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's say one of the things we do is we have a roadside party.
Yeah.
And we'll have a barbecue or something. We'll have food and drinks out in front of the store, and we get other merchants in our nearby to have gifts. And so people go and see it, and we have our ego costume. And so we get someone that's done it and says, well, this is the results, right? Because the activity is one thing. If it doesn't get results, it's useless. So
Sure.
we have testimonials of existing franchisees that have done it, and this is the response I've gotten.
Right. That's powerful right there. Let's talk about the cost to start the business. What does somebody have to bring to the table? And we know they have to put some time into it. We know you're providing systems, process, training, support. We know that they're getting a huge value add package, but what do they need to bring to the table financially to even really think about doing this with ATAX?
The total startup is about $70,000.
Okay.
And most people come to the table with 70,000. Although if you're experienced, if you've been in taxes before or owned a business before, sometimes we lend them part of that money. Okay. But I mean, the company does. Plus, we provide vendors lenders that will help them get funded. So, but most people can come up with the $70,000 startup cost.
And the timeline, I'm assuming, John, I mean, we're mid-September here when we're doing this recording. This is almost got to be the time to think about doing it, right? You don't really want to start this in February, right? So if folks are thinking about getting into the industry or thinking about, looking at a franchise in the tax preparation space, is now the time they should be talking with you guys?
Exactly. There's you want to be in this and made your decision and ready to go by Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
There's some that waited a little longer and they did all right. So Christmas, that kind of period. But most people should get their minds made up and come to training and be ready to go by Thanksgiving.
Makes sense to me. And yeah,
you have to be open by January 7th.
Yeah, I figured there was a early January type scenario there. Of course, I mean that's and I don't really know a lot about tax franchise, but just naturally would lead me down that path. So that's good to know. Now, when it comes to target areas, and you mentioned earlier, it's really not focused around where someone's at, but are there certain areas of the country? You had mentioned early on in this interview that you have a lot of Hispanic customers. Is there certain areas of the country that just makes more sense if somebody's there that they should take a look at your franchise?
Actually, yes. But it's not what you might think. It's not Texas or Florida or California or New York. What it is the number of people that are paying to prepare within about 10 or 15 commute of your office.
Okay.
Right? Because think of it with McDonald's, right? Mm-hmm. McDonald's spends $30,000. They find a location. Burger King doesn't spend anything. They get next door to a McDonald's.
Right.
And we're the same thing. If there's an H&R Block in your city and there's your zip code and there's no ATAX, well, to me, that's a big vacancy sign. There's going to be an ATAX next to every H&R Block. Now, we get great information from the IRS. We have better information on our customers than McDonald's does or Amazon does. We know their tax situation. And so we know the number of people in every zip code that pay a prepare, that file a return, and we know the IRS gives us the number of returns electronically filed, which is 95% of the business. By the Freedom of Information Act, we know the size of our competitor. So for example, if I'm going to open in Richmond, Virginia, there's about 30 H&R Block offices. I know the size of the market around each of those 30 offices. I know the best H&R Block to compete with and the worst H&R Block to compete with.
Sure.
So I personally will give you guidance as to where to open in Richmond. So it doesn't matter if you open in Richmond or Cincinnati or Detroit or Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, at Liberty, our biggest Hispanic office, you would never guess if I gave you 10 cities, this might be the last city you would pick. But it's Cincinnati, Ohio was our biggest Hispanic office. Because it's actually, when you go to El Paso, Texas, or Dallas or Los Angeles, there's dozens of competitors. Sure. There's not very many Hispanic preparers in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's actually our biggest Hispanic location was at Liberty Tech.
That makes so much sense. And see, that's part of what someone's getting when they buy into a franchise with that proven system and process. Those are the things that are so hard in franchising to explain the value of what someone's getting. You just shared a nugget right there, folks. If you didn't pick up on that, what John's saying is it isn't always necessary. You got to have competition, of course, just to be, fair in how everything works. But you said that the biggest Hispanic office was Cincinnati. I naturally, before you said that, the way most folks are thinking would be Houston, right, or Dallas, right? But there's also a lot more folks that speak Spanish that prepare taxes there. You're saying you go to a market where the community's there, but the community's not being served well, right?
That's exactly what has happened in this country.
That's great.
And that's what you get. Not only do you get me personally, I will pick your territory. And most people travel only 10 or 15 minutes from where they live to where they file their tax return. So I personally am going to, the granddaddy of tax is going to pick out your best territory. So you don't have to worry about it. If you're in Cincinnati, you don't have to worry where to open. I love it. You tell me how far you're willing to commute, and I will pick out the territory. Then I will send someone to pick out your office for you, because there's 4 ways to get customers. And one of the ways to get customers is just the visibility of the location. And because people don't like to get out and market, that's a crutch that is very useful to pick out a very visible location and have good signage. So we send someone to every market to help you select an approved quality location.
Well, it sounds like you've got all the pieces of the puzzle figured out here, and it's not just a one-time thing. Like, you've repeatedly done this, and that's what I would really say to everybody is that we've said the granddaddy of tax franchising here, John Hewitt. I mean, man, I appreciate your time. Now, John, if somebody wants to reach out, what's the best way for someone to get information about the ATAX franchise?
The easiest way is to go on our website, atax.com, and just request information.
Good deal. We'll make sure to include that at the bottom of the audio here on the podcast as well. And John, man, I'll give you the last 20, 30 seconds here to go through anything that you feel like I didn't cover. I think we hit all the hot points here, but if there's something you think somebody should know before we finish up, I'll give you the last little bit here to close everything out. And I appreciate your time, buddy.
Well, thank you. In addition to being an expert at taxes, and I've been with Block for 12 years and was with Jackson Hewitt for 15 and Liberty for 20 and now ATAX for 3. In addition to that, we have Loyalty Brands owns ATAX and we're the umbrella company. So we have 10 different firms and we do cross marketing. So for example, one of our firms is Zoom and Grooming, where we have mobile dog grooming, and our largest Zoom and Grooming customer has 5,000 customers and 3 vans, and 5,000 people need tax return.
Interesting.
And our largest ATAX location has 7,000 customers, and more than half of them own dogs. So they need grooming. So the cross marketing is a unique differentiator to this opportunity that no one else is doing well.
Well, John Hewitt, the granddaddy of tax franchising, thank you so much for your time, my friend. It was great talking with you. Thank you.
John, it was a great pleasure. Hope to talk to you again.